Hello and welcome to the Situation Report today. Glad to have you joining us. This is the show where we do our very best to give you the information and perspectives you need to navigate an ever-changing culture. My name is Jeremy Stalnecker here with Chad Robichaux, and really grateful to have you joining us for this conversation. There is certainly a lot going on in our world today, and as we get closer to the midterms, one of the issues, one of the voting blocks or voting demographics that we're hearing more and more about is what is called, in air quotes, the youth vote. The youth demographic, how you define youth, 18 to 21 to 24, some would extend it even beyond that. But the demographic of voters who are younger, these are folks who typically are beginning their working life, coming out of college, some still in college. And there is conversation around every election, particularly as we lead into these midterms. And when we get to 2024 election, it's going to be a big conversation again about who gets that vote. Is it left? Is it right? Are these policies that we are talking about, things like abortion, we've talked about that a lot on this program, other progressive policies, immigration, are these issues that younger voters care about? Is this something they don't care about? Do they care at all? And certainly we need to understand this. Very, very fascinating conversation. A lot of research has been done on this. But we have a great guest on today that spends most of his time thinking about young people, not only how they vote, but what they understand about our country, what they understand about God and faith and having a relationship with God, how those two things connect, if they do. And really grateful to have him on today. Our guest today is Christian Collins. Our guest today is Christian Collins. He is a consultant, the founder of the Texas Youth Summit, host of the Christian Collins Show, author, so many other things. Christian, thanks for joining us today on the Situation Report. Really appreciate it.
Jeremy, thank you so much for having me, and great to be with you both, Chad as well.
I want to start, and I know Chad has some specific questions, but let's start with your story. You have a fascinating background. I'm super intrigued about your story of growing up on the mission field and your parents involved in church work. Tell us your story and how you ended up where you are and kind of what birthed the work that you're doing now.
Well, thank you so much for that question. My dad and mom pastored a church for many years, one of them in Norway. They were missionaries overseas, and then they later pastored in Fort Bend County in Texas. And growing up a pastor's kid and missionary kid, I understood very well that life was hard because people were always watching you. Right. And much like politics today, when you step out and put your neck out on the line, you're in the limelight and people are watching you. So learned that from an early age. My dad always talked about the importance of politics growing up, and so idolized my dad, and later on got a degree in government from the University of Texas. But there was a transition between my junior and senior year where I wasn't living for the Lord, even though I was a conservative. And my senior year of college, I changed. I completely did a 180, surrendered my life to Christ, and thought for a season that I was no longer going to go into politics and was going to be like my dad and be a pastor, because I felt that was more altruistic and more honorable. Well, it was a season that I went through. My dad talked to me and said, if you still want to go into ministry later, then do that. But I had this opportunity to go to grad school and get it all paid for, working for the college, working for the speech team and teaching online. And so I did that instead. And I took some ministry courses, but still wrestled with this notion that maybe I would go into ministry or politics later on. But the doors were opening in politics. And what really gave me peace was watching this movie called Amazing Grace. Amazing Grace, It features William Wilberforce, and he's in the late 1700s, becomes an evangelical Christian at the age of 21, had been in the British Parliament for 5 years, and he talked to his pastor with the same predicament, wanting to go into ministry. And the pastor convinced him that you can make a bigger difference in politics. And so what ended up happening was, that isn't true for everybody, but for his case in particular, he used his life, the next 50 years, to abolish the British slave trade, and was tremendously used by God And from that point on, I really started to see the opportunity to do ministry in politics. And last thing I'll say on this front is getting to travel with Ted Cruz's father, Rafael Cruz, who I consider my mentor in politics and ministry. That experience traveling with him to churches and different groups around the country really helped me connect my faith and my politics. And my background teaching at the college for almost a decade now, as well as doing college ministries there, and having worked for different, elected leaders, and later running myself. Texas Youth Summit is what I founded 4 years ago, and it connects education, politics, and ministry, and it's what I love so much. So thank you for letting me share about it.
Yeah, that's awesome. When you talk about the connection, go ahead, Chad.
No, go ahead and finish.
I was going to say with the connection, and I agree that there's a connection between faith and politics, and there's a reason that people of faith, generally speaking, at least in the past, as some of that's changing, but in the past have had a conservative political bent. There seems to be almost a disintegration of this idea of the connection between faith and politics now. Even churches are moving further away from a connection between faith and politics. How do you deal with that, particularly as you're talking to young people, that there should be a connection between what you believe about God, your theology, and what you believe about how the world around us should be run and administrated?
Well, it's so important not to be a nominal Christian, and you're not a Christian by inheritance because you're brought up in a Baptist church in Texas in the Bible Belt. No, you're a Christian because you surrender your life to Christ and you live in a countercultural way where you follow what the Bible says. And it's not just a matter of reading it here and there, but living by it. Because if you don't change when you read it, then you really aren't who you say you are. And that's the point, is we want to reach our generation. And there's so many great men that I've learned from before me. And my generation thinks that they know so much because they have a cell phone and they can look things up. But there are things that you can't learn from Google, that you can only learn from wise men who you stand on their shoulders. And one of those is my dad, who I'm very close with. But like I said, Rafael Cruz. And, some of those folks with gray hair, they know what they're talking about. And, one of those men that I look up to, that I've had the blessing to talk to on a number of occasions, is Pastor Ed Young in Houston, Texas, who recently gave his sermon about these woke pastors who basically have, given in to this radical leftist ideology. And that's why we have the terrible crime problem in Harris County and in Houston. And he talks about the church becoming awake, recognizing their duty to stand up and be salt and light to affect the culture. We shouldn't put our heads in the sand as Christians and be quiet and be still and just let everything happen around us. Because if we're truly going to be change agents, a catalyst for Christ, and to be able to affect this world, then we have to go out and affect culture. We have to speak truth into the culture. And when people are saying that there are multiple genders, we have to say, no, there's two, man and woman.
Yeah.
So we've got to stand up for these issues that are so important, especially the socially conservative ones.
Yeah.
I was going to ask pretty much the same question as Jeremy. We were thinking the same thing, but I'll continue. I want to continue on a little bit with Jeremy's question, which is a continuation of that. I think many pastors and Christians have believed this or been intimidated by the left to say that they can't speak freely from inside of a church, from the pulpit, about political issues. And pretty much have been intimidated with this term, the separation of church and state. And they're using it in a way that it was never intended to be used, and intimidate Christians and pastors from feeling like they're forbidden from speaking from a position of Christianity, from speaking from the pulpit on important issues in politics, such as the right for life and things like that, or gay marriage and different things that they feel like the church should not have a voice in. And so you talk about a little bit on what the separation of church and state means. Where are the lines? Can Christians and pastors from a pulpit speak about such things that are considered political?
You've got a great question. Pastors can absolutely speak to political issues. The Johnson Amendment was created to keep pastors from being involved in the political process. But it really has no teeth. It hasn't been acted on ever. And the facts of the matter is the left, they're preachers, so-called preachers. They say whatever they want. They, usher people to the voting booths. But our side, oftentimes we just sit quiet and do nothing and let everything happen around us. And that's why we've had the generation of our society, of the family unit, and so many other important issues that God cares deeply about. And so when we think about this notion of the separation of church and state, that isn't from the Supreme Court. That was actually, this idea was a letter from Thomas Jefferson to the Danbury Baptist Church, and it was to protect the church from the state. It wasn't to protect the state from having Christians involved in the political process, because, as you probably know, Chad, 29 of the 56 framers of the Constitution were seminary graduates. These men, all of them, even the so-called deists, Thomas Jefferson and Benjamin Franklin, they all prayed together, and they all came before God. And this Constitution that we have here in the United States was forged on the knees of the framers. And our country was built on prayer. It's the reason why the dollar bill says, "In God we trust." It's the reason why we pledge allegiance under God, because we believe that God has given us this land, and that's why we believe it's exceptional. And Ronald Reagan rightly referred to America as that shining city on a hill to the glory of God. And that's referencing the scripture in Jerusalem, because America is exceptional because it's been used by God not only to spread freedom and democracy throughout the world, but also the gospel has been advanced because of the benevolence of people, Christians in this country that are seeing it succeed around the world. They give, and that's how it happens. And 70% of the missions work worldwide is funded by the United States of America. And America has been blessed to be a blessing. The scripture says, "To whom much is given, much is required." Our country needs to stand for these ideals, as we always have, and get back to our roots and our foundation.
Yeah, that's good.
That's right.
Christian, there are a lot of studies that have been done around young adults staying or leaving the local church, and the numbers are different from one study to another. Barna recently did one. Very, very high numbers. Some would say as many as 70% of young people, when they become autonomous adults so they can make their own decisions, leave the church they were raised in. Other studies say that 10 years later, many of them come back. But we're seeing, in a way, the church failing to prepare young people for the world that they live in. And that's not every church. That is, very broadly speaking, that's the church, not every local church. But when you talk to young people and pastors and Christian communities, what are some things that local churches, local church pastors, college ministry leaders, youth pastors, what are some things they could be doing to prepare young people, not only from a Christian discipleship perspective, but from a get ready to go into a secular world perspective as they leave their parents' home? What are some things they could be doing that they're not doing?
Well, let me tell you, one of the tools that influenced me was this camp called Summit Worldview Ministries. It's a great camp in Colorado, and it helps young people have a Christian worldview, because we talked about this idea of being nominally Christian and just saying, yeah, I'm a Christian. I was brought into a Baptist home and I come from the Bible Belt. But no, being a Christian affects how you view everything in life. It reflects how you treat your husband or your wife. It reflects how you raise your kids. It affects what you believe about politics and how you spend your money and what you do with your time and how you understand your place and America's place in the world. Having a Christian worldview means that it changes the way that you live. And so we started TexasYouthSummit.com is the website, TexasYouthSummit.com. So give a little plug there, to educate young people on Judeo-Christian and conservative values that this country was founded on, so that they have the right principles, that they can go forward and believe the right things when they go off to college, and their teachers are giving them antithetical ideas from their parents. They can come back at those teachers and say, well, in a kind way, I don't know if that's the right view that I believe, and here's why. I remember being in college, and I just politely disagreed with a professor that was saying that all Republicans are racist, or implying as such. And I said, that's not what I'm seeing. He wanted to paint Republicans a certain way. Yep. And we had a kind conversation after we disagreed publicly, because there was a couple hundred people in that auditorium. In his back office, and we formed a friendship. And he wrote me a letter of recommendation. And that's one of the lessons I learned, is that you can disagree with people in a kind way and stand up for what you believe in, but you have to do it like Ronald Reagan referred to as a happy warrior with a smile on your face. There's a right and wrong way to disagree with people. The wrong way is calling them names and attacking them. The right way is attacking their ideas without belittling them. And that's a hard thing to do sometimes. And in the meme culture, where we want to make some jokes sometimes and have some fun, and I'm not perfect at it, but one thing I can say with absolute certainty is that we should think about it in these terms. Like, if you were sitting across the table from them, would you post that? Well, then probably you shouldn't post that if you were in front of them. So having a more kind dialogue, but firmly standing up for what you believe in, and disagreeing with people. That's what we want to train young people to be able to do, is change agents to be salt and light and to affect the culture.
Yeah, that's good.
I think what you've done with the Texas Youth Summit and the events you do is not only incredible, but it's essential to our country right now, particularly with the youth of our country being targeted by Marxists and socialists that are lying to our youth and using them as pawns to vote, and just indoctrinating them and indoctrinating them in our universities. And so what you're doing is so important. And I'm speaking. Thank you for the invitation, by the way. I'll be speaking on September 16th and 17th.
We're honored to have you.
17th at the Texas Youth Summit in the Woodlands, Texas. And so if you're listening and you want to go, especially if you're a youth and want to go to the website, texasyouth.org, right?
Right, TexasYouthSummit.com, TexasYouthSummit.com.
Yeah. And get registered. But look, I signed up to speak for this event with you, and I promoted it out there, and I have been getting so much hate mail and seeing the comments on the social posts that are so aggressive against hosting this event, saying that we're participating in the indoctrination of our youth, that we're grooming Nazism. I'm like, anytime I'm involved in something like that and they get those attacks, I feel like I'm on the right team, because they're so aggressive against it. Like, what are they scared of? What don't they want these kids to know? As we're just people that are up there speaking truth. I look at the lineup myself and I'm like, man, who is on there that they are so mad about? And these are just people that speak truth. And they hate it, and I'm sure a lot of those are bots, because they're not able to get enough people that would respond to something like that. Man, it is crazy.
Yeah. Well, Chad, you have a great story, and we want to invite people with great stories, and your work as helping our veterans and traveling overseas to do these rescue missions to help so many people. To being an MMA fighter and champion, and to being a veteran yourself. And we just love to celebrate strong men who are Christian, and we need to celebrate traditional masculinity, because I think there are a lot of young boys that need to be told that it's okay to be masculine, and you're not it's not toxic masculinity to be masculine. You can still be sensitive. The Bible talks about if you're mean to your wife, God will not hear your prayers. And so we don't mean to say that, you don't be sensitive in some ways too. You don't apologize when you've done wrong, or you don't be kind, but we love the fact that you've done so many great things, and you're tough, and you're a fighter, and you're masculine, and we need our young boys to be able to see people like you and look up to you. And so that's what we want is people that will come and share their stories and inspire young people to be the very best that they can be, because we have to save our country, and the way that we do that is with the minds of our youth.
Yeah.
Where do you think the hatred and the attacks come from? What do you think? Who is it? What's the motivating factor? I mean, I have my, you know, ideas, but what do you think that comes from?
Well, when we get into some of the issues that our speakers are fighting for in politics, if you notice, I mean, I ran for Congress, and a lot of the people that supported me and that I'm more ideologically aligned with are speaking at this conference. And you have very tough people like Troy Nails, who is a sheriff from Fort Bend counties. He's also a veteran. He endorsed me when I ran for Congress, and he is very America first and supportive of President Trump, and people don't like people like him because he's tough. He says it like it is, and he just doesn't care if you are offended because he's going to do it. He's going to do what's right. Same with Marjorie Taylor Greene. She loves this country so much, and she's taken so much hate. But I just appreciate her spirit to stand up for what's right, to stand up for truth. And she's been belittled by not just the left, but by establishment Republicans ever since she got to Congress. And they tried to cheat and keep her from getting into Congress, but she stood with the people and she did what was right. And we love people like those that I just mentioned, those members of Congress that endorsed me when I ran for Congress. So, of course, those are the kinds of people that I'm aligned with. And they're going to do what's right. They're going to stand for the America First policies. And one of our friends, Commissioner Jack Brewer, works for the America First Policy Institute. And we want to advance that type of conservatism throughout our community and throughout the country. We want to see the policies of President Trump go forward. And we aren't an innately political organization, but we do believe in certain ideas about the border. We want to secure our border at all costs. And I've been very firm on my stance on securing our border, finishing the wall, and stopping illegal immigration. We want to make sure that we aren't entangled in all of these endless wars. And so we want to make sure that our veterans are taken care of, and we take care of the boots and not just the suits who are sending people that in places that they don't understand and shouldn't be sending them to. And so these types of philosophies by former President Trump is what the America First Policy Institute believes. And that's the type of conservatism we want our young people to understand.
MyPillow is having their biggest sheet sale of the year. You all have helped build MyPillow into the amazing company that it is today. Now, Mike Lindell, inventor and CEO, wants to give back exclusively to his listeners. The Percale and Giza Dream bed sheet sets are available in a variety of colors and sizes, and they are all on sale for as low as $29.98 with our listener promo code. Order now, because when they're gone, they're gone. The Percale and Giza Dream sheets are breathable and have a cool, crisp feel. They come with a 10-year warranty and a 60-day money-back guarantee. Don't miss out on this incredible offer. There's a limited supply, so be sure to order now. Call 1-800-870-0283. Use the promo code SITREP, or go to mypillow.com, click on the radio listener square, and use promo code SITREP. Christian, what is your sense around, we'll say young people, I don't know how you classify that exactly, but around young people politically right now? There are attacks. If you are a young person on a college campus that's conservative, you're going to have to deal with a lot of the liberalism and a lot of the other things that are happening there. What's your sense? Are young people encouraged? Are they motivated? Are they backing down? Are they stepping up? What's happening with young people? And I know you're in Texas, which is maybe a little bit different than, say, the young people in California. But I will tell you, my daughter goes to a private college in Orange County, and the Republican club that's there, that she's a part of, is very influential on campus and has been even through the COVID stuff. So I think this is happening everywhere. But what's your sense of where young people are right now?
With coming out of the pandemic and with COVID, and there was a lot of people that I think got caught up in the George Floyd situation. They wanted to be a part of something. They wanted to stand up for justice. even if they were being manipulated by Black Lives Matter Inc. They were wanting to make a difference. They want to stand up for justice. And that's a great attribute, I think, of our young people. They want to be involved in something where they can make a difference, where their lives can mean something. I think that's in the heart of most young people. And we want to teach them why our country is great and show them ways where they can make contributions in their community, whether it be community service, working with our food banks and helping hungry people. It could be volunteering at your church and in being a greeter or cleaning up after the service is over, just doing everything that they can to get people to come so that people can know Jesus. These types of things, I think, are tremendously helpful, helping with the homeless community, in your area. These ways, I think, will help young people find purpose and meaning out of life, because, looking at a cell phone all day and playing video games online and not interacting with actual people and instead just resorting to doing that on social media, these things I think are detrimental, doing too much of those things. I think it's important you have a cell phone Sabbath where you put your phone down and actually get out and go out and do things and be involved in good causes and go see the world. And so, I don't necessarily have all the answers, Jeremy, but what I can say is that when parents are involved in their children's lives, and maybe they have just dinner for an hour a day where they put their cell phones down and they have candid conversations with their kids, like, hey, what are you learning at school?
Right.
What is your teacher telling you? And maybe finding out if the teacher's keeping any secrets with the child from the parents. Those things are important, especially in this day and age. We want to make sure that our kids are growing up in the right ways and having those conversations. What's going on in your life? Who are you friends with? What types of games are you playing? Who is trying to reach out to you on your phone or on social media? Especially with younger children. And these types of things are critically important and will produce a stronger, better family unit and culture ultimately.
That's good.
Yeah.
Christian, what are some things that obviously you're making great strides with Texas Youth Summit. What are some things that people could do at an individual level, from parents to just people who have the same concerns that you and I have? What are some things that people could be doing to help steer our youth in the right direction and not be adversarial toward them, right? I mean, I know myself, like, I'm so passionate about some of these things. I want to grab people by the shoulders and be like, look, you're being hoodwinked. Like, let me show you what's really happening. What is the right way? What are some things that people could do?
There's so many different ways that we can make a difference with young people. Like I talked about, volunteering at church, working with good nonprofit organizations, and becoming a big brother to someone that maybe doesn't have a father. Treating your own children with the type of intentionality as we do our careers, because oftentimes, as men, we want to invest everything that we possibly can in our careers, because we're doing it for our families. But actually, what really counts, I think, is the more time that we spend with our families intentionally, I think, really will make a difference. And so doing everything that you possibly can and finding people that you can mentor. Maybe there's a program at church where you can disciple someone, or you can be discipled by someone, and learning from people that are wiser than you ultimately is the best approach. And maybe we teach some of these young people some principles that, it's sacrifice now, it's self-denial, and then there's rewards for that later. There's got to be boundaries that we have in our lives that we don't cross these certain boundary lines, because if we do, there's going to be trouble for us. And it's not to say that God cannot redeem us when we make mistakes, but there are always consequences, and we need to make sure that we're doing what's right early on in our lives, because as we do what's right now, when we are faithful in the little things, God will bless us with much. And so just learning the self-disciplines in life to, not procrastinate or, not indulge in certain things. And that's what we can learn from people that are wiser than us, because there's two ways to learn, actually, Chad. There's, you can learn from your own personal experience, which I think is, when you're making mistakes, the worst way to learn. But the best way to learn is from somebody else's mistakes. And when you can learn from others in that way, what not to do and what to do, then that's, I think, a better way to learn, because it'll keep you from heartache. So, having that intentionality with discipleship and mentorship with someone, and it's two ways. You accept it from someone and you give it to someone. And, in the age of college, we've sort of gotten away from trade school and the apprenticeship, but it isn't just in personal development, but also in career and job. We need good plumbers, just like we need good lawyers. We need good electricians, just like we need good engineers. We need, people that are going to produce a strong society. And we need some of these jobs to be taken care of, and they can only learn it by learning under somebody that knows how to do it.
That's good.
Yeah, I know one of your speakers, Charlie Kirk, talks a lot about the scam of universities, and how so many of our youth are just, and we as parents, pushing our children to, that's the only option, to go to universities. Not even teaching the first lesson in economics that you have to have an ROI. If you're spending $200,000 on education and make $45,000 a year, it's not a good education, not a good first step in learning. So, I agree with you, man. We have. I mean, I'm not against college, but if you're going to go to college, go for a purpose. Right now, you don't just go and rack up $200,000 in debt just because you want a degree. And there's nothing wrong with trade schools. A police academy, a fire academy. Becoming a plumber or electrician, these are good honorable trades that in fact make great incomes. So,
right,
yeah,
right,
that's good. Christian, you're doing a lot of good work, and you're getting a lot of pushback. It doesn't seem to bother you that much. But what would you say is, as we kind of bring all this together, what would you say is your kind of personal mantra or motivating factor, the thing that causes you to get up every day and go, I'm going to keep doing this, I'm going to keep pushing forward, I'm going to keep making this happen? What drives you or pulls you, or whatever direction you're being led? What keeps you going every day?
Deep inside my heart, there's a desire to make a difference. If I know I ran for Congress this past cycle, but this event really is not about me. It's about those young people. And if they can, come to know Jesus, and we celebrate America, and they get excited about our country and our great state, that's a wonderful thing to me. That's a victory. And we want lives to be changed. We want addictions to be broken. We want people to find their purpose and their calling, so that they can live lives of service that I think will ultimately bring meaning to their lives. Because materialistic things, it ultimately will not fulfill us. Having everything that we could possibly want at our disposal, we may think we want those things, a better car, a bigger house, but the reality is family is what truly matters. Having a relationship with God first and foremost, that matters. And living your life and finding your calling in such a way where you can glorify Him. And it doesn't just have to be as a pastor, but using your time and your energy, wringing it out for the glory of God, and sharing Jesus with as much people as possible, whether you have a nonprofit program working with veterans, whether you're on a radio or podcast or TV channel, whether you're a doctor or whether you're a plumber, or whatever you do, we need to use our time, efforts, and energy to have these conversations with people where we're sharing Jesus. And I think as America continues to be strong, I would argue that is a good thing for the advancement of the gospel. And I'm going to do everything that I can to fight for this country and continue to lift up Jesus.
Yeah, that's awesome. Christian, where can people, again, give us the website for the Youth Summit, but also any personal contacts where people can follow you, I know you wrote a devotional. Where can they get your book? Where can they learn about you? Where can they support the work that you're doing?
Thank you so much for that question, Jeremy. We have our Texas Youth Summit September 16th and 17th. It's usually covered by Right Side Broadcasting Network. We're grateful for the good work that they do. It's at Grace Woodlands in the Woodlands, Texas.
Oh, nice.
We have some great speakers from Candace Owens to Kayleigh McEnany to Senator Ted Cruz, our great Senator Ted Cruz. We have Marjorie Taylor Greene and Lauren Boebert and Matt Gaetz, amazing members of Congress that we're welcoming into our community. Two great members from the Texas delegation in Congress, Troy Nails and Lance Gooden. We have Chad Robichaux and Jack Brewer, and so many others from DC Drano to Allie Beth Stuckey.
Wow.
Allie Beth, I think, really speaks well to young ladies who need to find their confidence and self-worth in Christ. And everything that she says, I think, is countercultural, so it's beautiful. We need to be able to educate young people with these types of values, and we make this conference free. So if you want to support what we're doing, you can do so at texasyouthsummit.com and sponsor us. You don't have to come to sponsor us, but if you'd like to come, buy a ticket. We're doing great things, and we'll continue to do this event in other places as well. I have another one October 22nd. We're doing it down there in South Texas with Congresswoman Myra Flores, and we're bringing in Kayleigh McEnany and a wide array of others. And so with the money that we raise for this event, we're going to do it in South Texas. We want to continue to make a difference throughout the great state of Texas and who knows elsewhere. So we're excited about what we're doing. So you asked about my contact information. Twitter, Collins for Texas. That's the handle. And Instagram, it's Christian Collins TX. And you can check out my book, which is on my website, christiancollins.org, christiancollins.org. So
awesome.
Would love to have your support in any way that you're able to give it. And we're going to continue to work hard to reach young minds here in Texas.
Beautiful. Christian, that's awesome. Thank you so much. Really, really appreciate your time.
Well, I really appreciate you having me on, Jeremy, and I'll see you soon.
Many of our veterans feel they need to fight their battles alone. This self-isolation has led to the staggering statistic of more than 20 veterans taking their lives every day. The mission of Mighty Oaks is to eradicate the veteran suicide epidemic and help our warriors change their legacies. We've been able to help over 4,000 veterans and first responders by equipping them with the tools they need to live the lives they were created to live. Our faith-based, peer-to-peer approach has one of the highest success rates of any program available today, offering hope and understanding to those who need it most. By aligning their lives to biblical principles, these men and women are able to lead their families, their communities, and our nation. It's your generosity that can make a difference in the lives of the men and women who have fought for our country and our freedoms. Now that they're home, don't let them fight alone. Learn more at mightyoaksprograms.org. I appreciate the work of folks like Christian, people who see what's happening in our country, understand just how valuable the ideals that built our nation really are, how those sustained values, if we can hang on to them, really do benefit the rest of the world. And then coming back to an understanding of faith and relationship with God, how maintaining the United States as it was intended gives us the opportunity to communicate faith, to communicate the gospel to those in other nations. What an important conversation. I hope that you will go and check out the Texas Youth Summit, check out Christian and the work that he's doing. That would be fantastic. If you are listening and have not yet subscribed to this podcast, and if you've listened all the way through to this point, you may have heard me say this before because I say it every single episode. Subscribe. You need to hit that subscription button or whatever it is on your platform of choice. You're listening right now, make sure you're subscribed. That lets you know when this and other content from the Situation Report goes live. We want to make sure you have that as often and as soon as possible. In addition to that, leave us a rating if you would. That helps the show. And then take some time, go over to YouTube. You can find our YouTube channel, The Situation Report. Great content there as well that we would love to include you on. Subscribe, hit that notification bell, leave us a comment. that would be fantastic. Again, thank you for watching. If you are watching, thank you for listening, and look forward to talking to you next time.